So what I'm doing is I'm starting a screen recorder. I record all of the lectures. You hear my voice, you see what's on the screen. That way if you miss a day, you can just go back and watch the video and catch up. So anyways, here I am viewing the syllabus in a preview window, so I'm going to click download. I'm going to open it. And here we go. Fundamentals of Computers and Programming. What are we going to do? We're going to learn procedural and object-oriented logic. A lot of buzzwords here. For problem solving, utilizing several program development tools and techniques, including traditional flowcharts, pseudocode, and a programming language. In other words, we're going to learn how to program. And we're going to give ourselves some mental tools with which to learn how to do that. One of them is the art of flowcharting, which is when you just draw pictures on a piece of paper or on a screen, showing the steps. Just like if you were going to send somebody to Walmart to buy you some flour, you could draw a map. And the map, would be a visual representation of what they were going to do. Or you could write a series of instructions, right? Turn left, go forward 10 miles. The map is one thing, the series of instructions is another. So the course will present core concepts of writing programs such as variables, what is a variable, decisions, loops, functions, and objects. Before long, all of those will make sense, which apply regardless of the programming language. So once you take this class, you're going to be ready to take any other programming course that you want, whether it's, you may have heard of other programming languages like JavaScript or Java or C++ or C#. All of those things have some common foundation upon which they are, built. The idea of functions and loops and decisions and variables. And so the concepts you learn in this class will apply to all of the others. The language we use is known as Python. It didn't have to be Python. We've taught this course in other languages, but Python is a really good language for teaching because the syntax is not overly complicated. And whenever people hear that the syntax is not overly complicated, whenever you may talk to somebody and they go, oh, nobody uses Python. Well, that's not true at all. Lots of companies use Python. Whenever you see, posted on the news that NASA lander did a flyby of the moons of Jupiter and took these pictures or whatever, all of that data is processed using Python programs because it's a good program for writing powerful programs quickly. So it is a good language to learn, and as I said, even if you did never use it again, it will apply to other programming languages, and even if you never program a computer again, you're going to have in your brain a much better model of the way that these things work, so you can think more logically about how programs are written. So there's my name, Professor Thompson. I don't care if you call me Mr. Thompson or Jeff or Professor, whatever. Professor Thompson sounds good to me. I'm downstairs in room 102. There is my phone number, and while I'm thinking about it, I strongly recommend everybody grab their phone and go ahead and send me a text message, if you would be so kind. And I'll explain why as soon as I bring this up here. So just put your name, and what class this is. Something like that. Now, the reason I ask y'all to do that is, one, you'll have my contacts, information stored on your phone. So if you ever get stuck, go ahead and text me. Send me a message. I'm up until 2 o'clock, 2 a.m. every morning. So don't worry about waking me up. And I know how to silence my phone anyway. So never worry about bothering me. So it's a good way to reach me in the weekends or late at night or before class, whatever. And the way it works is, say you're stuck on a problem. You say, I'm working on assignment 3 and I can't get it to run. I'll say, take a picture. I'll type back, take a picture of your code and the problem. So you go click, you text it to me, and I can look at it. And quite often, just within a minute, I can point out what's wrong. I can send it back. So, that's a lot faster than you emailing me a problem and then me turning around and asking you a question about it and you sending the code back to me and me loading it up into it. Right. So by taking pictures of your screen and texting them to me, back and forth, we can usually hammer out problems really, really quickly. And also if I hear that campus is being closed because of weather, something like that, or, some other really important reason. I'll never contact you about non-school, non-class related matters, so you don't have to worry about that. And at the end of the semester, I delete all the phone numbers I get. So if you have had me before and you're trusting me to have your number, don't. Please go ahead and send it again, because I don't. I remove the numbers after the end of the semester. Okay, so you will need a computer in order to do this stuff, unless you're going to do all your stuff all on campus. Now, I've had people ask, you know, can I do this on my Chromebook? And at the time, I didn't know how to get people up and running on a Chromebook, because you can't install Python on a Chromebook in order to get it to work. Now I know how to get it to work. You're still not installing anything. You're just using a website that will let you run stuff. But it won't let you do absolutely everything that we're going to do. So if you're going to, you know, if you're feeling, you know, obstinate and adventurous and you want to do all of this stuff on an iPad or a Chromebook or something like that, then yeah, you probably could do so, but there'll be times when you have to come on campus to do some of your work, and there's a room right next to us. All the computers in that room have the same software that we have installed on here, but that's like the edge case. Usually people have Macs or PCs or whatever that they can install the Python development environment on. It doesn't take up much room on your computer, so that will be one of your tasks, is to install it so that you can do your homework. There's another phone number you might want to add to your phone. That's the campus IT help desk. So if you can't log in, you know, what's wrong with my password, and they'll tell you what they need to do about it, or what you need to do about it. So our required textbook. It's part of the C-Engage textbook series, which means that it's online, it's on a website, and if you have more than one class using the C-Engage books, the MindTap books, the C-Engage books, then you're going to want to buy something called C-Engage Unlimited, which means that no matter how many different books, you pay the same price, because this is like 70 or 80 bucks, I don't remember, for access to one. But then if you get access to, if you need more than one, then you get the unlimited, and that way you get as many as you want. You know, I think you can sign up for a year or half a year. I don't remember how it works. There will be a link, we'll get to it in just a minute, that you will follow on our website that will take you to a page where you will either enter a code that you bought at the bookstore, or you can just buy, you know, access right then and there without your credit card or whatever. We're also going to use an online, well, I guess the other one's online too, but a different textbook called How to Think Like a Computer Scientist. And what do I mean by different? It's just a web page. You know, why don't I just take y'all to it? This is such a good web page that the class could almost kind of be taught without another textbook. But it really is a good idea to have a textbook that is not specifically dedicated to Python like this one is, because this isn't just a Python programming class. We're learning about programming in general. We don't want to just always zero in on one language. So we're going to do two things. We're going to use this web page, which has, you know, lots of Python specific information, and then we're going to be using the book. Now the book shows you lots of code and snippets in lots of different languages. You know, C++ and Java and stuff like that. So don't get confused when you're looking at the book and it's giving you a code example in some language other than what we're using. It's because these concepts apply across a whole bunch of different languages, and they didn't add Python to this particular textbook that we're using until the 9th edition. So yeah, you'll still see a lot of code written in other things. Is that going to make it harder? No, hopefully not. You ought to be able to figure out the concept of what they're doing, and then based upon what we're learning here and going to this website, you know, and learning, blending it all together, it ought to fit together real well. So required software. You're going to need Python 3, and there's a link for installing it out here in contents. You don't have to do it on these machines, of course. If you have a laptop and you feel like bringing your laptop in, you can do that, right? You know, if you have a Mac PC laptop, you want to do your work on that, that's totally cool. In which case, you would want to install it. If you go into our D2L page and you click on contents and you go and click on Python, it takes you to a link where you can install it. And so that's actually going to be your first homework assignment. Maybe you've already got it installed because you took another course that required it. But anyways, you're going to install it and then prove to me that you have. So like I said, I say iPads and Chromebooks won't work. If that's really absolutely all that you have, then we might be able to make it work, but hopefully that's not the case. So upon successful completion of the course, you want to be able to understand fundamental concepts and general principles of programming, such as loops, decisions, state, input, and output. All these nice little buzzwords that'll mean a lot more to us pretty quickly. Create and understand flowcharts and pseudocode. When we use the term pseudocode, that sounds kind of weird, but what pseudocode is it's just a handwritten in English version of the instructions, right? If you were telling a robot how to go down the hallway, and go to somebody's office, you'd have to be very precise, right? You'd have to, say, go forward until you, hit the wall, and then you turn 90 degrees this way, and you'd go that way, right? Pseudocode is just when you're talking about it in loosey-goosey, instructions. You're not putting it into something that has to be so specific that a robot, a computer can do it. You're just describing for another human what your program is going to do. In a recipe, for example, it's a good piece of pseudocode, right? How are you going to make a cake? Take this much flour, this much sugar, do all this, do all that. It's not so precise that you could make an industrial plant make cakes for you, right? It's not telling you exactly how many of this and how many of that, but it's a recipe. It's a human understandable series of steps. And then we're going to write and run Python script programs that perform tasks that understand these concepts. So the grade scale is pretty boring. 90% is an A, 80 is a B, 70 is a C. People sometimes ask, is the course curved? No, not really. But if you're making an 89.5, I'm not going to be a jerk and give you a B, right? I'd probably go up to an A. Grades are broken down to where a third of your grade is based on your homework. A third of your grade is based on what we do in class. You go, oh, what do we do in class? Well, that'll become clear real quickly. And then a third of your grade is based on exams and then the quizzes. So grading policy. When you write your program at home, it actually has to run before you send it to me. I mean, you can upload it, but you're not going to get any credit, or you're going to get very, very little credit if it doesn't run. And what do I mean by that, if it doesn't run? Well, programs have to be written using a very specific syntax matching the language in which you are writing. Now, I'm going to launch the Python editor known as idle, I-D-L-E. Why is it called idle? Because it sits around and hangs waiting for you? No, the inventor of the Python language loves Monty Python's Flying Circus, and Eric Idle is one of the the lead members of that troupe. They could have called the editor Cleese, or one of the other stars in Monty Python. Anyway, so I'm going to go to the start box, and I'm going to type in IDLE, and I'm going to launch idle, and it's going to pop open this Python, what's known as a Python shell. There we go. Now that's not actually where I do my programming. If I want to write a program, I then have to hit File, New, just like you were creating, a document in a word processor or something like that. Now you don't have to follow along with all these steps. We'll be doing it again a little bit later when I do want you to follow along. But I'm going to create a little bitty program, and I'm going to show you a syntax error. As soon as I increase the font to the size that you can all see. Okay, so alright, so I have one line of code here. And what this is supposed to do, what the input keyword does, is it displays a message on the screen, and whatever's inside these parentheses is what it's supposed to display on the screen. So it's supposed to display the message, what is your name? And since it's an input statement, it will then sit there and wait for the user to type something in, and if they do, it will be stored in that variable. It will be a piece of information that is assigned to that variable, which we can then later on do, right? We could print their name out or open a file based on their name or something. But there's a syntax error here. The syntax error is that if you have an opening quote, you have to have a closing quote. Just like, if you're following, the rules of English formatting or whatever for writing papers, they talk about the Oxford comma, and the comma has to be inside the blah, blah, blah. And there are very specific rules of syntax, and one of the rules is that for every open quote, there has to be a closed quote. For every open parentheses, there has to be a closed parentheses. And so if I left one of those two things out, it wouldn't work, which I'm going to do. Now I'm going to save my program. When you click Save, I just hit Control S to save it. I'm real used to the finger, you know, to the keyboard shortcuts. But I could have also just tried to run the program and it would ask me to save it. But when I do that, it's going to try to save down into the guts of the Python directory where all the Python programs are stored. And we don't want to do that. This should not be the default place for saving these things. So instead, you're going to want to create a folder somewhere else and save your work there. Please don't save stuff into the Python 37 directory that comes up as a default. Eventually, you'll break Python to the point where you'll have to uninstall it before you can reinstall it before you can get it to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go to my desktop and create a folder, call it CIT1113. And then I'm going to drag that folder over to my favorites so that I can get to it, because every single day we're here, we're probably going to write another program, and I'm going to be able to get a hold of it easy. Come on. There we go. Right. Why are you not letting me dock it? Okay, well, I'll fix that later. Anyways, and so what am I going to call my program? I'm just going to call it hello. All right, so I tried to run it. How did I try to run it? I clicked run module, and it blew up. EOL while scanning string literal. All right, now that looks like gibberish. All right, what's an EOL? EOL, why is it scanning? What's a string literal? We don't know what any of that stuff is. What we do know is that it didn't work, right? It did not display the message, what is your name, and then wait for us to type in something. We got a big red nasty X. So it's not working. If your program is doing this, it's not the right time to upload it, right? This is what's known as a syntax error. A syntax error is when you have something misspelled or misformatted in such a way that the programming environment cannot turn it into something that the computer can do, so-called compile it. Because what happens is we have this nice English-looking stuff here, but before the computer can actually run it, it has to be turned into something known as machine language, which we're not going to learn. That's way beyond. But you know, it has to be perfect, and that sounds scary. Perfect syntax before it can be turned into that machine language, before the program can actually run it. Right? You have to give the instructions have to be so perfect that the cake can be baked. Right? And then once I have those instructions, I can give it, you know, to somebody else and say bake the cake, and they can follow them. Well, that's what we're doing. We're creating a recipe. We're creating a set of instructions that we want the computer to be able to do. But if there are errors like that, you know, I'm missing a quote or whatever, it won't run. Now, the reason I'm going over all that is to say that if your program doesn't run on your side, then it's not going to run on my side, right? And so what a lot of people do is they will type in, I guess what I would call like a first draft, right? You know, they'll write a bunch of code and then they'll run it and it won't work and they'll submit it anyways. Well, you're not going to get much partial credit. You may get 1%, right? But what I'm going to do is that after I grade it, I'll say, no, this program doesn't run. It's got syntax errors. Please rewrite it and resubmit. And yeah, you can then turn around and resubmit it. The goal there, if you ever don't get a good grade on an assignment, I'll almost always say, please revise and resubmit. Because that's what you do in the real world, right? You know, you're making a game, and you publish the game out to to the servers that are doing it, and people start running it. They get into problems with it. You get the bug reports. You fix your code, and then you publish it again. Right? It's an iterative process. Nobody writes a perfect program, you know, especially complicated stuff that people do nowadays. So it's an iterative process. You don't make an A on your program the first time you upload it. You know, revise it and resubmit it. And I will always add that comment to your grade. I'll explain why you only made an 80 out of 100 or a 1 out of 100 or whatever. I'll say, you know, it didn't do this and that. Revise it and resubmit for more credit. So what I had to do to get it to work is I had to fix that syntax error. Now, the syntax errors do not always tell you exactly what, you know, it's kind of an art that you have to learn. And what do I mean by that? I'm going to fix this, not fix this, I'm going to add another statement to it. Now, there's no syntax errors in this line. That is a correct line. But when I run it, it stops. It says EOL while scanning string literal, and it's not, and it's put the cursor there. All right. At least it put it close to the right space. However, if I make a slightly different syntax error, what I did is I did put the necessary quote there, but I removed the parentheses, so that's not going to work. It makes it look like the error is that word. And you can go nuts. I know I spelled that correctly, right? It's the easiest word in the print. Why isn't it, and it just turns out that if it ever hangs on the first word of a line of code and you don't see anything wrong with it, then the problem is really very likely on the line above it. It's just that that's when the computer noticed something was wrong, is when it got to this line. And so that's why it highlighted that line. All right, back to the syllabus. So, if you write the program but it doesn't meet all of the criteria, right? Like I say, write a program that, will count from 100 out to 1,000 and then back from 1,000 to 100. But you only do the first part. It counts up, but it doesn't count back down. You'll get partial credit for it. And then I'll say why you only got a 70. I'll say it didn't count down. So go ahead and revise it and resubmit it. So that's partial credit. If you only receive partial credit to the prior items, you can revise and resubmit to get full credit. So programming assignments in general are due a week from the day in which we mention them. Like today, I'm going to say, your homework is to install Python. So, this is Tuesday of this week. That means by Tuesday of next week, by the Monday night, the day before, then you need to have installed Python and prepare the documentation that I will ask for. Generally, always have a week. Sometimes I'll give you more. If I do something dumb, like I create a homework assignment and I don't put a due date on it, then I'm probably not gonna spring it on you later and say, oh well, you should have had that done by now. But the first person to notice that I haven't put a due date on something, please go ahead and text me and let me know, right? What I have to do then is I probably have to stretch the deadline out, because I come in and find out that nobody has turned it in because there wasn't a due date on it. You're smart enough to know that if there's a homework assignment out there, it's got a due date. That due date is a week from the day in which we talked about it. Let me know so I can go in and fix that. But I'll never spring something on you like coming in on Tuesday and saying, okay, guys, I want y'all to have this done by Thursday. Nah, that's not enough time. I always want you to have a week to do it. Homework assignments completed on time will receive a 5% grade bonus. That's kind of nice because that means that as long as you upload it, by 11:59 p.m. the day before, and it works, you start accumulating bonuses, right? And those bonuses could actually be used, to wipe out, a missed program later on. If, you can't do something towards the end of the semester, if you've got 10 bonuses already queued up, that's a lot of points that would offset that problem. Note, the student must have completed at least half of the programming assignments to pass the course. This is a programming course. It's not pure theory. A couple of years ago, we had instructors who taught this course without you ever actually writing any programming code. And that would bore me out of my skull. Since then, all the instructors have agreed upon what language that we're supposed to be learning and that we're all actually supposed to be doing that. It is a programming course as well as a theory course, so you will need to write the programs. And so if it gets to be the end of the semester and you haven't been doing the programs, if you've only been doing the stuff that we did in class, then your grade is going to have already suffered by then. But even if you had done enough of that to perhaps be passing or squeaking by with a 60 or whatever, you won't be able to pass unless you get half of the programs done. That should not be hard, but if you're struggling with this stuff, you just need to talk to me about it. Some of y'all had me in the past, and you know that I will go to a lot of effort in order to make sure that we talk about stuff and get you up and running. All right, so the late assignment policy. 10% per week, right? You turn in something on Tuesday that was due on Monday or whatever, up to a week late is 10%, up to 2 weeks late is 20, up to 3 weeks is 30. Up to 4 weeks is 40, and after that, you don't get any credit. Now, don't let something go that long. And honestly, I'd probably let you slip by with getting it in a day late, right? Because you might want to come in and ask me a question about it, right? So that you could then turn it in, that night. I would let that slide. But if you're not turning in your work in time, what that means is that the stuff that we're talking about in class is not going to make any sense to you, and you're going to get further and further and further behind. Trust me on that. It's a slippery slope. Once you miss one assignment, then they start piling up because you didn't understand that one, so that means that you didn't understand what we were lecturing about the next day, which means that doing the next homework assignment is that much harder. So the in-class assignments. The in-class ones are when I sit up here and I type along, like what you just saw me doing, and if you want to, you can type along with me to get a program up and running on your own machine. And then at the end of class, we upload that into a folder. Now, what if you tell me I don't like typing along? I've had people who really find it very difficult to type, right? They can only type with one hand, 2 fingers or whatever, just for whatever physical reason. I totally understood that. And they went ahead and typed everything along. They tried really hard, but I would not have blamed them for saying, no, I just don't want to do that. Well, if that's the case, if you don't want to follow along, then at the end of the class, go ahead and just upload a note saying that you watched, that you were here. Right. I do want something in the daily folder, whether or not you upload a program. But I do want you to upload the program. I would like for y'all to do that. I think you learn better. Most people learn better by actually seeing in front of them what it's supposed to look like and going through the, feeling the trauma of getting the syntax errors and, I wander around and help y'all getting up and running. So hopefully y'all will do that. Those are the in-class tutorials or the in-class assignments. Where I'm showing y'all how to do stuff. And all you have to do to get a passing grade on that is to upload a note saying you were here, right? And I'm going to give you 100%. Or upload the code, right? And I'll give you 100%. What if the code doesn't even work? Well, you were here and you were trying, you're going to get 100% on that. If you miss the day, you just make it up by watching the video at home, right? Because all of these videos are saved, and I will post the links to them on D2L, so they're YouTube videos. You watch them at home. Now, if you watch them at home, you also can sit there and type along. If your monitor is big enough to have, a coding window here and a YouTube window there, that's cool. Or maybe you have a 2-screen setup, or maybe, you'll watch it on your tablet or whatever. If you find it unpleasant to type along when you're watching at home, you don't have to. You can fill out a form that says, I watched the video. I'll show you that form in a moment. But for those assignments, the in-class assignments, it doesn't have a sliding 10% per week scale. You either get full credit, or if you're more than a month late, you don't get any credit at all. Now, really, don't wait a month, right? If you miss a day, get the video watched by, the end of that week so that, it does not impact your learning for future lectures. Now, if you tell me that you're going to be late on something, right? I need to go up to Michigan. My grandmother died. I have to work on her estate, whatever. I'm pregnant. I'm likely to be giving birth, and I'm not going to be doing a lot of homework then. Yeah, I've got it. So just let me know in advance. Talk to me about it, and I'll waive, late penalties as long as you've talked to me about them. Now, don't wait until 2 weeks after the assignment and then say, well, I couldn't finish it for this reason. Well, you should have been talking to me about it. Now, attendance. Do I take off for attendance if you miss a day? No, I don't. I do keep attendance. We have to keep track of the records, but I don't count off. If you miss a day, just be a grown-up, watch it on the video, catch up on the lecture. That's why we post the lectures. As a general rule, the students who attend classes and do not miss many days perform better in the course. And I guarantee that this will bite somebody this semester, either in this one or the other section, is that you miss one day, and then you watch the video at home, and you think, okay, yeah, this is pretty cool. And then you're less inclined to come in the next day because, there's that video. I don't have to sweat it. And you get in the habit of missing lectures, but then you get in the habit of not watching them either. And things spiral down really bad. So try to be here as often as possible. But if you can't be here, that's totally cool. If you're sick, don't come in. If the weather looks like something you don't want to drive in, I don't care whether school is canceled or not, right? You just send me a message saying, weather's bad. I'm going to stay home, right? Or, I got to pick up my kid. Whatever. Just let me know and watch the video as soon as possible, within the next couple of days. All right, now this says incompletes will only be granted for students who are passing the class. And I kind of need to edit this. The instructors in this division and in most of the others have been told to not give out incompletes anymore. And what happens, what is an incomplete? The idea of an incomplete is, well, I didn't get to complete all my work, and so I want you to put an I on my transcript. The way it's going to work now, unless you really, really manage to convince an instructor otherwise, and they've been told to, not do this, is to they're going to give you whatever grade you'd earned up to that point, right? You went to school, you know, 3 months into the course, you had done like 70% of the work necessary, but you obviously not gotten to take the final. You only had a midterm. If we averaged all that up, you might be making a C in the class. That's what I would have to give you. But I would work with you, and you could finish the work up once the semester ends. Now, I don't want you all thinking, okay, hey, that's great. I don't, deadlines don't matter. But if you've been talking to me about, why you're not going to be able to finish the course, then I'll understand, and you get a chance to complete the course after the end of the semester. In which case, we will change the grade, because what was happening anyways is that I was being converted into an F after a certain amount of time anyways, and so why not just put the F there and save the time? I don't know, whatever reason that they've decided to recommend doing against it, but that's the way it'll work. If something comes up in your life and you don't just drop the course because it's so far into the class, into the semester, past the drop date, whatever, I will work with you. And, we have some time, after the end of the semester, we could say, okay, you'll have 4 weeks in which to, complete the course material, and we will change your grade. So since you are here, this is not a problem. But you've probably heard about an AAW. Maybe not. An AW is what happens, what gets recorded on your transcript if you skip the first 2 weeks of a 16-week class or the first week of an 8-week class. What it means is you just did not attend. AW, attendance with absence withdrawal, something like that. And used to be that people could run a kind of scam where they would get, a grant to go out and go to school, and they wouldn't actually go to the school. They would just take the money. They would never show up, and then somehow they would manage to do it again. I don't know how they did that, but nowadays what happens is that if you don't attend, an AW gets attached to your transcript, and whoever paid you, whatever government entity or whatever was giving you a grant, then comes and takes that out of your pocket. So it's way, way, way better for you to actually drop than to just not attend. Everybody's here, so that's obviously not a problem. But just in the future, realize that you need to attend the first week of your class, no matter what. I've had students skip the first 3 weeks of class and then contact me, wondering why they can't access it. And well, you weren't here. You got dropped with an AW. But I didn't know attendance was mandatory. And I said, did you read the syllabus? Well, no. Anyways, so not going to be a problem for y'all now, and probably not in the future. Just that's what an AW is. All right, so what are you responsible for? You need to be able to access MindTap and D2L. MindTap is where our online book is stored. You'll have a link to it. In other words, you're going to need a computer and the internet. If you don't have a computer and the internet, then you can use the computers in the room next door. You're going to need to keep track of D2L updates. Every once in a while, I'll post news, in D2L. If it's really important news, I will also email it out to you. If it's super critical, like, hey, I'm not going to be there on Thursday, right? I was in a car wreck. Then I'll text it. You're going to need to read and use the text. And I know a lot of people say, well, I'm a visual learner. I don't like reading, Yeah, read the textbook. You're gonna be paying money for it, so you may as well read it as well. Keep up with the schedule. It's not my fault if you slip behind on the schedule. Things get harder and harder the farther behind you get, so please keep up. You need to complete the in-class and the homework assignments. Please turn in homework assignments on time. Complete the MindTap exercises, which are quizzes. There's also programming problems in there, but we'll probably do them together rather than asking y'all to do them on your own. The MindTap can be a little bit annoying as far as programming questions go, because you better type in exactly what they're expecting, or else it's not going to give you credit. So it's better if we do those together. And asking for help when needed. All right. Disruptive behavior. Please don't put anything on your screen that would distract the people that are behind you. Because if you're watching a Twitch stream, everybody behind you is going to be way more interested in what you're doing than what I am, because I can't compete with Twitch, right? And that sounds like a silly example, but honestly, I've had people do it. I've also had people go to the back of the class and, with their portable game machines, play Street Fighter 2 or whatever against each other. I hate having to be a jerk and go back there and say, stop doing that, right? Just don't put anything on your screen that will distract the people behind you. Set your thing to silent so that if you're not getting pinged by text messages. And if you have your phone on the table and it's vibrating every time you get a text message and you're responding to them or whatever, it's going to be really annoying the people around you. So if that's the case, then put it in your pocket so you get the vibrations in your pocket rather than the zzz, zzz, zzz. I've had people complain about that, and then I had to go to the person and say, people, I mean, I know you have it on silent, but the buzzing's irritating to people around you. If I modify the syllabus, we will go over it in class, and I will post an update on D12, and I will email it out about it to make sure. I don't see why I would modify the syllabus, but yeah, if I did, if something was important enough that I felt I needed to, then you would be notified by one of those means. Okay, expectations from your instructor. I have all these expectations of you. You should have expectations of me. I better provide clear instructions for the assignment. If you look at the assignment and you don't understand what I want, or it looks confusing, it's ambiguous, the instructions look unclear, it looks like I'm asking for two different things, whatever. If I haven't written good instructions, then how are you going to write your code, right? So, feel free to ask for clarification. Text me up, say, hey, I don't understand the homework 4. What do you mean by this? Or how is this supposed to do this? Or whatever. And if you ask, I'm probably going to look at your instructions and I'm going to go, oh, yeah, you're right. And I will update it. And everybody gets to see the improved version of the instructions. So if I botch that, ask me for help. I will improve the instructions and make sure everybody, including you, knows it. Answering questions regarding assignments, whether you ask them in person, email, phone, or text. I will be grading assignments and giving feedback. Now, if you get 100% on a homework, I might not type a lot of feedback. I may just type, great, right? You aced it. I'm not going to give you, a paragraph feedback. You're good to go if you got 100%. But if you didn't get 100%, there's going to be an explanation of why so that you can revise your work. I will always give at least a week's notice for due assignments and 2 weeks of exams. Posting all assignments is notice, PowerPoints, and reading assignments on D2L. Everything you need will be on D2L. All your due dates will be there. The exception are the end of chapter quizzes, which are in Mind tab. But we'll get more familiar with that as we roll along. So academic integrity. Because we summarize as don't cheat. All right, but what is cheating in a programming class? 2 students working together is cheating. Doesn't sound fair, right? But you got to do your own work. And it gets really sticky if you have multiple students who are sharing the same computer in an apartment, right? You and I may be sharing a computer. It may be really tempting for us to just sit there and work on it together, and then submit it one, But no, you have to do your own work. And if I see programs that look too much alike, then then I may ask you to do it, or I may jump on your case. And when I say jump on your case, we'll hear more about that in a second. You need to do your own work. One problem can be when somebody asks you for help. Snapchat buddies, you say, hey, can you show me can you show me your code? How did you do this part? And can you just email it to me? And I'll fix my code based on it. And instead, you take what they send you and you upload it and pretend that it's your own. I've even had people submit it with the wrong name up in the top, right? Where you type in your name. No, you don't look like Janet. I don't think that you did this work. So anyways, what happens then is if you submit somebody else's work as your own, they're going to get a 0. They're going to get accused of academic dishonesty as well as you getting a 0 on it. And they're going to be incredibly unhappy. And the 0 is not the worst of what will happen. So it's plagiarism. Plagiarism is the use of thoughts, ideas, words, phrases, or research of another person. You're familiar with the idea of plagiarism, like, you're writing a term paper or something. Right? You can't go and just grab several paragraphs out of a book, type it into your term paper and upload it. And if you're going to use stuff from a book, you have to quote it, you have to cite it, or you should paraphrase it or whatever. The same is true for programming. People use search engines like Google for programming help all the time. It's just part of being a professional programmer. If I get stuck on something, I pop up Google. However, that doesn't mean you take a program that you find there and upload it as though it were your own. For example, if I asked you to write a hangman program, well, 8 million people have written Python hangman programs in the past. And so if you went to Google and you typed in Python space hangman, you'd probably find one that, hey, this looks kind of neat, and you'd copy that and you'd submit it. It would be full of stuff that I know you didn't write yourself because we're, programming techniques that we haven't learned yet, stuff like that, I'm going to be able to tell that you copied work from the internet and submitted it. Don't do that. Please don't do that. What you do is you Google it up, you learn the syntax for what you need, and then you rewrite it to make it your own. Just like when you paraphrase, right? When you're writing a term paper, you make the knowledge your own. After you've done something by copying from the internet, not copying from the internet, after you learn something by using the internet to find examples, you ought to then be able to write the same thing, even if I just set you with a piece of pen and paper and ask you to write how it's supposed to work, right? Because it's supposed to be in your brain. And if you just did a great big copy and a paste, that's not going to work. Okay. Also, obviously, if y'all are collaborating on an exam, two people are texting each other, right? What's one of the worst cases I had is, I don't really like having control of, sure that nobody just popped up, They had Gmail open and they were asking each other, sending each other answers. That's ridiculous. Don't do that. Y'all are smart enough to know not to do that. I've only had that happen a couple of times. I'll talk more about that in just a second. So consequences of academic dishonesty. If I decide that you didn't do your own work, or you let someone else copy your work, or you collaborated on an assignment, the least that will happen is that you'll get an F for the assignment, quiz, or exam. And obviously for an exam, that would be a grade killer. This applies to all collaborators on the incident. It applies to quizzes, exams, and homework. I do encourage y'all to help each other in the in-class assignments, right? I can't figure something out. You've got it working perfectly. You see the instructor wandering around helping people, but if you notice it's just something as easy as putting in parentheses there, you might say, hey, it's a parentheses. That's totally cool. But don't then establish a relationship where you think that just because you are helping each other in class, that means that you can give each other your homework assignments. So, additionally, the student will be reported to the division dean and the director of student conduct as a violation of student code of conduct. Worse things can happen there. You could even be expelled from the school. That's a lot of trouble to get into just because you felt like copying code, or borrowing somebody else's code and submit it. So don't do it. All right. Before I go on, I'm going to insert tests. Tests are scary, man. Well, my book tests are open book. You can use your textbook. You can get online. Since our textbook is online, you can use up all the PowerPoints. You can use anything that you have uploaded to D2L. Right? You can use anything I have uploaded to D2L. You can go to MindTap and do a search or whatever search function, So it is open book. It's open book, open notes. It's open, raise your hand and ask for help, right? So don't panic at the idea of a test. Tests could be a lot harder than how I run them, right? No book, closed book, multiple choice, just Scantron. Now, what they are, they're on the computer, and you'll have lots of resources available to you. You can view the PowerPoints, the daily notes. You can have notes that you've created. It'll all be good. Free personal counseling. Stuff happens, and if that stuff that's happening is decreasing your success in college, then you might need to talk about it. In which case, there's a number, a website. Go there and you can set up a confidential counseling session. And those are some really cool people. I had somebody who was physically assaulted by a professor, by an instructor at a different school. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that I heard that. But anyways, so they, referred them to that department and they worked it out so that eventually, some consequences happened at the other school. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. If you're stuck on anything that's grief, trauma, substance abuse, you can't sleep because, this, that, and the other, you go and talk to them and they can be a help. Student support services. Like if you have dyslexia or, typing and, difficulties or stuff like that, there's all sorts of different, things that can be physically challenging. You can go to the Student Access Services, formerly known as the Office of Disability Services. And they'll help you fill out a worksheet, and the worksheet will be given to me. And if you need extra time to complete assignments, okay. If you need to sit on the first 2 rows, yeah, that's cool. If you need to be able to bring your own recorder in, I'm not going to complain. I'm taping all this stuff. I don't care if you stick a camera and point it at me, right? You know. So you work out with them what you need to ask for, and then that is presented to me, and I will happily abide. Then there's something called the Student Success Center. Oh, I thought I had a link to it. I will stick a link to it. So, Student Success Center. Help students reach personal growth, professional development, academic progress, connect students with resources, guidance, and other services. So study skills assistance, campus support, assessment of student learning styles, provide academic advisement support. So, you know, some workshops coming up. Scholarships, unlock your potential to learn, math anxiety, resumes, job searches, you know, women's selfhood, or ability to act in the public domain. You know, so there will be a link to this. I'll update it so that there's a link. Budgeting within your means, get organized, simplify your life, how to succeed in science courses. All that kind of stuff is available to you, and you've already paid for it, so you may as well take advantage of it, right? Everything that the school has to offer, you may as well grab as much of it as you can. It's a long URL. Maybe that's why I didn't have it in there, but I'll put it in there. All right, electronic communication. Hopefully you know that you have an email address. You log on to it by going to, you can go just straight to Gmail, to Google email, and then your email address is your first name, your last name, @raider.rose.edu. The bookstore URL, I always just go to Google and type in rose.edu bookstore, right, and it takes me there. The student handbook, if you want to learn more about withdrawal, incomplete grades, audits, etc., there is a link to that. I don't know why I have the word "for" there twice. Schedule. This is pretty much applicable to everybody for all 16-week courses. The last day to drop of the full refund will be February 4. So, yeah, the Monday after next, right? Spring break. The final exams are that week. Our specific final exam is then, and on the last page I just copied and pasted the final exam schedule so that you can check, you know, any of your other classes. Now, that doesn't mean that your professor has to offer it at that specific date. You know, I don't get to countermand them, but this is the campus schedule for them. Alrighty. So the way the class works is you come in, I lecture, I talk, and then we open up the coding tools, and I type in code, and y'all follow along with me if you want. We get our programs running so that you understand the concepts of the variables and loops or whatever. That's your daily assignment, your in-class assignment. Then there will be homework based, you know, roughly on the same topic. And so that stuff you'll work on at home. When you do your submissions, I want you to take a screenshot of your work. And so as we do our in-class stuff today, we're going to take a screenshot of our work. I have some documentation here about taking screenshots. Most of y'all probably know how to do it, and you probably know better ways of doing it than what I'm going to show you, and that's totally cool. This is just written up for those, you know, who need the help. So if I go to class information, taking screenshots of your work, basically all you have to do is get your stuff on the screen and then hit the print screen button. And then go to Word or some other document editor and paste. And then boom, you're done. You've got the screenshot done. If you're on a Mac, it's a different process. Oh, I don't have the Mac instructions here. That's bad of me. I will update this with the Mac instructions, and I know that the Mac users probably already know how to do it because there's more than one way. But so it's as easy as you know, clicking something. I think it's like Command Option Shift 3 or something on the Mac. I'll find it and I'll update it. Pardon me? Yeah, Shift Command 4. Yeah. So, why don't we write a program together? We have a little bit of time. So I do want y'all now to go ahead and go to the start box and type in idle, IDLE. This is the editor. When you run idle and it comes up, this is known as a shell. The shell lets you type in programming commands. Right? I could do this. A is equal to 1. B is equal to 2. C is equal to A plus B. Print parentheses C. All right, I found out that 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. Now, I didn't write a program. Kind of looks like a program, but I didn't write a program. From now on, I'm almost going to never do anything in the shell. So, the first thing you're going to want to do anytime you launch idle is to do a file new. And the reason why is because we don't just want to enter commands one at a time. We want to write a program. This is the same thing as me sitting there supervising you while you're baking a cake. Now go and get the 2 cups of flour. And I sit and I wait for you to do that. And then I tell you, okay, now go and get the sugar. Now, instead, you want to write a recipe so that you can publish it, so that you can run it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do file, new file. And I'm going to put my name. I'm going to put that this is CIT1113. I might want to put the date. First demo program. Something like that. This is called a comment block. And by the way, I type faster than 70% of y'all. If I ever get too far ahead, just tell me to slow the heck down, and I will. I know that that's the problem. I keep trying to slow myself down. If you're getting behind, don't wait, until after the program is done. Slow me down at that point. Similarly, if we run into syntax errors, if you try to run it and you're getting a problem on your end that I'm not seeing when I run it up here, then you need to stop me then rather than wait 15 minutes, right? Because fixing things as they go helps a lot. Okay, so what is this program going to do? It's going to ask the user for their name. So we're going to use a print statement. This is a print command. So print parentheses, what is your first name, question mark. Now I didn't say quote. So what I say does not always match exactly what I type. And as we go along, that will start making a lot more sense. But I meant to say print parentheses quote, what is your first name? End quote, in parentheses. Later on when we're all familiar with the print command, I may just say print what is your first name. And you know that there's going to be parentheses involved and quotes involved. But I'm going to try to speak, specifically at this point. Now, FN, standing for first name. FN equals input, parentheses, end parentheses. What the input command does is it lets the user, it sits there and waits, holds the screen while the user types stuff in. And then when they hit enter, that information is copied into this variable. A variable is a thing that's got a name and it holds some data. All right, now let's ask for their last name. Print, parentheses, quote, what is your last name, question mark, end quote, in parentheses. And since we call the first one FN, I'm going to call this one LN. LN. Now that looks like one N, but make it an L. LN equals input. Parentheses, in parentheses. Alrighty. Now we're going to print a message. Print, quote, good afternoon, end quote. Now I add more spaces than you need to do. I just put the spaces to make it very easy, clear to see what I typed. So print parentheses, quote, good afternoon, end quote, comma, FN, comma, LN. In parentheses, like that. Now this is a working program. Maybe. I don't know if I have syntax errors or not. I'm going to need to save it. So if I went up here to run module, it would tell me that I need to save it. I could do file save. Now I have my fingers trained to just always hit Control S, right, or Command S on your Mac if you know you're going to save. So you don't usually see me do this step, but I hit Control S to save it, or however you want to save it, and let's go ahead and make our directory to save things in. Desktop CIT1113. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new folder and call it CIT1113, and then I'm going to drag it over and try to dock it. Why is it not letting me dock it? What am I doing wrong? Alright, this is idiotic. I'm going to leave it alone. Okay, and then I'm going to call this one Jan22.py. If you left off the .py, it would work anyways. It would assume that is the default file extension. And I'm going to click Save. And now I'm going to run it, and I'm going to find out if I have syntax errors. There is this check module command here, which kind of does a cursory check looking for syntax errors. Honestly, I never do it, and I just go straight for run. So you see where I did that? Run module. It's asking me for my first name, Jeff. What is your last name? Thompson. It says, good afternoon, Jeff Thompson. So it completed the series of steps that we told it to do. The logic starts from the top, and then it just continues line by line until it reaches the end. And it can get a lot more complicated with that, with function calls and loops and stuff like that. But, you know, to begin with, our logic flow, our flow of control is just top down. And that's what it has done. And so if we compare this with what we see over here, it makes a lot of sense. Our output does. Right? This is what we told it to do. And this is the results. We told it to do print, what is your first name? So it displayed a message. Colored it in blue. There might be a different way to change the color, but anyways. And then there was an input statement. And so that typed in Jeff. But along with the input statement, we had this fn equals, which means take the results of that input statement and store it somewhere inside the computer's memory in a place named fn. Now that name, that fn is a name you get to make up. Variable names, you make them up. And the variable names only mean stuff to us, not to the computer. The computer wouldn't care if I made that the variable name, as long as I use that everywhere where that was supposed to appear, right? That would work. It's silly, but it would work. The variable name should be meaningful to us. Two-letter variable names is kind of pushing it. One-letter variable names is even worse. We should try to come up with distinctive variable names. What I should have done is made it first name, like that, and last name. But I didn't because that's more typing. So in the classroom examples, I try to straddle the line between choosing good variable names and picking stuff that's easy to type. Because I don't want half our time being spent, you know, just trying to figure out why, you know, this 10-letter variable name doesn't match here and here. So a variable is a space in memory that has a name and it holds data. In this case, the data that is returned by the input statement. We have a little bit more time, so let's add on a couple more lines of code. But first, I should wave my hand. Is this working for anybody, or you need me to come look? All right, so we're going to add just a little bit more to the program. We're going to have it ask us for a number, and then we're going to double that number or something like that for whatever purposes, just to show that we can type in something and then the computer will understand that it's a number and do math on it. So I'm going to I need a variable name to hold a number. NUM sounds like a good variable name to me. NUM. And I'm going to mess with the syntax a little bit. NUM is equal to input, open parentheses, quote, what is your favorite number? Parentheses, end quote, end parentheses. Now notice that the way this is going to work is effectively the same as this. This prints a message and then does the input. This also prints the message. It does it in one line rather than two. Does that mean that when you're writing your code, I want you to do it this way? Or that I want you to do it this way? No, it's totally up to you. They look slightly different. We will see that. But whatever the user types in is not going to be a number. We'll get into the meaning of what the term string means in the future. But when you typed in Jeff, that's just a series of characters, right, from the typewriter keyboard. Well, if you type in a number, it's still just a series of characters. It's not going to know how to do math on it. So we have to convert that number into something that we can do math on. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say num equals, and then the word float, which sounds silly, but it stands for floating point number, which is a number with a decimal point. Float, parentheses. And it's okay that this stuff doesn't make sense. We're just, you know, we're getting a feel for it rather than understanding 100% of it. So num equals float, open parentheses, NUM, close parentheses. Now what does that mean? That means take this value and turn it into a floating point number, because it's a string at this point. Anything you type into the computer is first a string, and it has to be turned into a number before math can happen to it. All right, and then we're going to print a message. Print, parentheses, quote, my favorite number is end quote, comma, num times 2. And when I said times, I meant asterisk. You don't use the X to do multiplication on it. You use the asterisk. So num star 2, num times 2, and then close parentheses. And then run it again. So it says, what is your first name? I'm going to type in something. My name is Bob. My last name is Roberts. What is your favorite number? It's 100. And it says, my favorite number is 200. This is like one of your annoying friends who always has to be better than you, right? So it's going to say double what you want. Now I want to point out something about the way that we did this second input statement. Since we didn't put a print statement before it, and instead we put what we wanted it to display between the parentheses, when we were putting the print statement before it, and then we had an input, the input occurred on a different line below what we printed, right? What is your first name? New line, Bob. What is your last name? New line, Roberts. But then this one all was on the same line. What is your favorite number? Question mark, 100. That was a side effect of the way we did it here, where we did the input statement and we had what we displayed, what we printed right there between the parentheses. You'll see me zig and zag between those two ways of doing it. It saves a little bit of typing just to do it all in one line, right? But I kind of like doing the prints and then the inputs on two different lines, specifically because once we start flowcharting, it's nice to have them in two separate places. Okay, so say we love our program and we're done. And if you were working at home, I would want you to upload a screenshot. Now, when you're doing this here, I don't care if you give me a screenshot or not. But when you're doing it at home, I do want you to upload a screenshot. How do we take a screenshot? Well, I think everybody's not using a Mac here. So what we would do, and it doesn't matter whether you actually got it working or not, is get your code up on the screen in one window, get your output up on the screen in another, you know, kind of move them around a little bit. You don't have to get 100% of your code, because if your program is long, right, it's not going to fit. This is just to show that you got it to work. And then hit the print screen button, which is above the numlock button, right, way up in the upper corner of your keyboard. Right there. One of the top 3 upper right keys is print screen. So just click that and then open an editor. You could open Paint or you could open Word, whatever. I think I'll open Word. So I'm going to go to the search box and I'm going to type in Word and launch Word, and then I'm going to paste. Now I don't see the paste command. I'm sure there is one. Oh, it's right there. What do you know? Bigger than life. But I tend to use keyboard shortcuts, so as it suggests, Control-V is a shortcut for pasting. Just paste your picture there. And now you're good to go. Let's save it. And if for some reason you want to crop all this stuff out, I don't care what your desktop looks like and stuff like that. But if you want to, you could save your screen top, you know, you could save this as a Paint document instead of Word, and you can crop it, do whatever you want. But I don't think that we need to worry about that here. So then go to File, Save As. Hopefully you've used Word before and you know what I'm about to do. I clicked File, Save As. This PC. I'm going to go and find my folder, which I placed off the desktop, but yours may be in a different place. Now is it going to let me anchor it over in the corner? Somebody tell me what I'm doing wrong. I've only done this for 20 years in a row. Why am I not able to drag this out over into my favorites? Whatever. Okay. And then I'm going to save it, and I'm going to give it the same name. Jan22 dot. I could type in docx, or I could just remove the extension and let Word pick one for me. And click Save. Okay, so I have a screenshot now. In whatever directory I uploaded it into, and I happen to know which directory that was. I'm going to go look for it. I saved those both off a folder off my desktop. So desktop, CIT. Oh, that's annoying me. Okay, and there's my 2 files that I'm going to upload. So I'm going to go and make the Dropbox for that. And if you don't have the code finished yet, that's okay. Let me make the Dropbox so that everybody can upload it. What is your homework going to be? By next Tuesday, I want you to have installed Python on your machine at home. Just install it and type in a 1-line program that prints your name and run it, and then take a screenshot and upload that screenshot proving that you have IDLE installed on your machine at home by Monday night. I'll write up those instructions and upload it. All right, so if you go into D2L and click on Assignments, you'll see the Dropbox. And like I said, I'll bring up the code in a minute for those of y'all who want to finish typing along. Hopefully you know how to save to D2L, but it's possible this is your first time you've seen it, so let me go into student mode so I can demo it. So I go to Assignments, I click on the folder, and there's something that says Add File. So I'm going to click Add File. I'm going to add the file from my computer. And it says you can use drag and drop, or you can click the upload button. I'm going to use the upload button. Go and find my docx. But I'd also like the py file. And if you feel like zipping stuff, if you know how to zip to a compressed folder, that's totally cool. You can zip, you don't have to. So I'm going to upload the other one as well. Now I have two things that I'm going to upload. Now this is just like sending email, right? Just because you use the, the paper clip and you attach a Word document to your email doesn't mean that the other person's got it. It's only when you click submit, that's like clicking the send button. So until you see the screen here that says file submission successful, it's not actually uploaded, no matter how many other steps you took. All right. Are there any questions? I'll wander around, make sure that everybody's doing okay. Stop the recording.